and welcome to another live stream here on Strange Planet. And I want to share a video before we get rolling. Have a look at this. This is going to set up what we're going to talk about tonight.
Well, we were going to try to go over there to get to the hinge, but this is too Mars-like. That way. So we're going across these rocks, and they are pretty strong. Oh, yeah, I see. You're right. The road is here. We looked like it would be a good place to pass, but unfortunately, we decided. And I'm actually surprised he was so willing to come this far, but we decided to go back, and it wasn't just him; it was me as well. So that's the center of the Richat right over there. It's kind of amazing how symmetrical those mountains are. I don't see the castle. It was over there somewhere, right? There's some big circle. Yeah, Mars. We're in Mars.
There you go. Actually, that's not Mars. Wait for it. That's Atlantis. Atlantis in the Western Sahara Desert in the country of Mauritania, modern-day Mauritania, and Western Africa. And that is David Stig Hansen you heard. That's his video. That particular area is known as the Eye of Africa, or the Richat Structure. The Richat Structure. You're going to hear about that tonight, because that is, I think all of the evidence now points to, that is Atlantis. And David Stig Hansen is about to join us. David, really from a young age, was exposed to UFOs, Bigfoot, giants, the face on Mars, and much more. He's actually visited the Richat Structure twice, just last year, and he's also has an MBA in international business. He moved to Taiwan, became a university lecturer until 2021, and also studied Mandarin at the Defense Language Institute. And it's a great pleasure to welcome David Stig Hansen. David, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Great.
Before we get started, just tell me a little bit more about that video. That was taken in 2022?
Yes.
This is the first. Was
January.
That was the first time you drove out to the Richat Structure?
It was. I know you have listeners who are going to ask some questions, so I'll just kind of wait before I give you too many details. But yes, I got up and went right in the middle of that. The COVID. It wasn't really the outbreak, but it was. That's why the price was so cheap, believe it or not. Because later, the second time, the price did go up a little bit. It was almost twice as much, to be honest. So yeah, early January, I had a reservation. There was a new outbreak, and all the tickets were just canceled. All the flights were canceled. So when I went back and I was using AAA travel agent, there were no flights available. So 3 days later, I got online and booked a flight online and got there for like $1,000. I think it was $1,500 total to get to the Richat in January of 2022. I mean, there were other expenses, but yeah,
of course.
So it was so easy. I did it again.
So, and it's so, as you say, it's Mars. It does. It looks like the surface of Mars. And given that this is potentially one of the, should be considered one of the great archaeological discoveries, of the last several centuries, you'd think that place would be crawling with people, archaeologists. There's nobody there. It's like nobody cares.
True, true. There are a lot of European vacationers that go there. So to say I've been there twice isn't a lot to brag about. Sorry, I forgot. Indie architecture just went. Indie archaeology. He went there before I did. Josh Sturgensen went there. Indy just went back again. I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
That's okay.
But I want to give him credit because he was there the same day Josh Sturgensen. We're all YouTubers. But like I said, and by the way, Josh went through Morocco. So when you hear him talking about landmines and seeing dead bodies, that's entirely possible. I didn't see any landmines or dead bodies because I flew into the capital,
right,
Knoxshot, and then rented a truck and they have a driver included. So you got to rent a vehicle. If I could have my own truck and drive around without a driver and just go at my own pace, that would be the ultimate. That's the dream trip for me.
Right.
So next time I go, that's what I really want to do is just drive around by myself and not have the pressures. And you know, when it comes to hotels, yeah, to get a hotel when you're in the capital, but when you're on the road, might as well plan on just camping outside. Bring a tent and a mosquito net because there are big, huge mosquitoes.
All right. So, yeah, you're like a real life Indiana Jones. Let's just back up then.
Sure.
When did you first start to appreciate the fact that this looks like a pile of rocks and sand in the middle of the Western Sahara Desert might be the location of Atlantis?
Well, part one, when did I see it the first time, was in 2009. I had a lot of spare time, and I was on the computer, and I said, I need to get on the Google Earth and check out the Sahara Desert. You know, I had used it for all sorts of stuff already, but the Sahara Desert was a mystery. So it was really 2009. What was the first thing you think I saw? So literally, like within a half hour, I was, you know, what's this? And I looked at it and said, it looks like an eye. Typed into Google, the Eye of Africa. It came right up. Now that was 2009, and of course, you know, I kind of got off that topic, and I did other stuff with my life. I went back to Taiwan because I was home for a while, and that's when Jimmy's video came out. I'm going to show you a slide in a second, but I don't mind talking about it now, and you'll see the slide, and you'll know you'll already know what I mentioned.
Right.
So, yeah, Jimmy from Right Inside. I bet you 90% of your audience knows who he is, and he was the one that told everybody two things. One, Herodotus mentioned Atlantis, and it's pretty clear. And if somebody doesn't believe that, check out Chris Tolworthy's video and see his explanation, because it's really clear that everybody knew about Atlantis. Aristotle, apparently people think he didn't think Atlantis was real. Apparently that's a fake. That's not fake, but a misunderstanding.
Right.
And even all the Greek philosophers thought Atlantis was real.
Right.
And that was number one. Sorry to interrupt you, and I'll stop. Part two was the castle. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, in Plato's dialogues, I mean, he was very precise in terms of the dimensions, the description, you know, a city on an island surrounded by concentric rings, canals, the actual measurement in terms of, I guess they measured in stadia back then. But then if you actually, you know, take those dimensions in Plato's dialogues and apply it to the Eye of Africa, the Richat Structure, okay, you're maybe not so convinced? No? Okay.
Not a fibber. I can't lie. I'm never going to twist what I believe is the truth. I'm always going to be honest about it. I think that the Richat is about 4 times larger than Plato's dimensions.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. And I was watching Randall Carlson when he did the Atlantis coverage, and he said that as well, and I was still figuring it out. And the number 187 or 197, going way back to visiting Atlantis, that number, I tried redoing it, but let's be honest, and if you put a gun up to my head and say, was this Atlantis? I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to bet my life 100%. In fact, after my first trip, I was no longer Team Richat as Atlantis, but wait, I went back because there's something I'll show you. But the whole idea of everything having to be exactly what Plato wrote, it's not. I don't believe it's possible because of what is it called, the telephone game. Plato said he had Solon's writings in his possession. So the telephone game didn't start from Solon to Plato. And I do have some slides. Should I show you?
If you're ready, yeah, I want you to
It
sort of
matches.
steer
Yeah,
this
it
the way you
matches.
want.
So let me just show you. And by the way, let me take this opportunity to talk about my website.
Yes, please.
I really need subscribers. You know, I think it's time. It says at Stig, but you can also put David Stig Hansen in there to get it.
We've got the
okay,
link in
why
the
is
we've got the link in the notes here in
Thank
the
you.
description, so people can just find
I
it.
like to be so open and transparent about everything. That's why when the trolls come after me, I'm really ready with the information that I've said because I've been called outright liar. Was This Atlantis Facebook page has a lot of these images with their Google link. So I don't want you to go there now, but later I'll let you know if it's in that page or not.
All right. This
Yeah,
is you
as
as a
you mentioned,
child.
I did. That's me inside the mouth of Quetzalcoatl. Sorry, I just named another word in Aztec language, but Quetzalcoatl is the feathered serpent, and that's Teotihuacanaco. You can correct my pronunciation because I got nervous just now. But my mother stuck me in his mouth when I was about 4. I went to Guatemala, but I didn't get into Tikal. I was so close, but the banks were closed and I ran out of money. You mentioned I learned Chinese and I went to Taiwan and I became a university lecturer. So that's the short of it. I was in Taiwan the whole time, which is interesting because that's when I started reading Graham Hancock's books. I just skipped it and realized I was only 100 miles away from Yonaguni, where he was probably at the same time. And the funny thing about that is that when the water levels rose, and it was not, that's 200,000 years, but it was actually just about 17 to 20. Now we're saying 12.9, 12.8. But the Taiwan was connected to the mainland. And so Yonaguni also was probably connected to these ancient cultures here as well. And there are pits on this stone here, the pregnant rock. It's not perfect, but it does have its nubs.
Sorry, I got to
And
stop
the
you because
stone
you were
is
throwing
Taiwan.
out some names here. Yonaguni. What is Yonaguni?
Well, you can see in this map, it's pointing at the island, but Graham Hancock did a book called Underworld, I believe. I may be a little off because it's been a while, but he talked about learning how to scuba dive so he could go check out the underwater structures, which is kind of depicted here.
Got it.
And I didn't really want to get too deep into it, but and you know, Robert Schoch, the geologist, took a look at this and he at first thought it was unnatural, but then later decided it was probably natural that was changed later. And, you know, I'm not a proponent of trying to push any agenda. If it's not natural, it's not natural, but it was really close and I would really love to have gone there myself. Getting there from Taiwan's a little difficult, but the minute I heard that Graham Hancock also visited Dulon, down on the eastern coast of Taiwan, I went down there right away and checked out these 3 places. Some of them are in Taidong in the Beinan National Museum, and then some are up in the Beinan site. Actually, up in Dulon. I made a mistake, but it's Dulon and Beinan.
Okay.
And I can pronounce that in Chinese. And then I also went to Cambodia, to Angkor Wat, also twice. But guess what? When I went there, I was still pretty ignorant. And in this picture, I wanted to say I got rid of that shirt and learned how to suck in my stomach. But no, I was still ignorant. I didn't really have any idea about what questions to ask. And it took, I mean, that was like 2007. So now we're here in 2022, 23. And what's that, 15 years, 17 years later? I can't add right now. But before I went, we still knew some things. So I finally got the chance to go. I came home, I had some money, and I just went for it.
Okay,
And,
so this image here, excuse me, David Stig Hansen is
Sure.
with us. This image here, is this a Google Earth image of the Eye of Africa?
Yeah, you can still get your phone to show your location through the GPS.
Okay.
That's, you know, I have to be honest, I had that in there and I thought it was me, but I kind of later thought maybe that wasn't me, but I do have some other evidence. But I just put that up for a visual effect. I can't lie.
Okay, so in other words, when you were
that's
there,
what you see when you're driving around. You can't get internet anywhere, so
Right.
it's all fuzzy. You have to back out. but you can still use it to navigate around because you've got GPS on your Android. Or I suppose I don't have an iPhone,
Okay.
but I'm sure that it also has it.
So that's what Atlantis looks like from the air, or at least we should say the capital of Atlantis, because there were different provinces, I guess, if you will. But we'll get into that later.
You just had David Edward was just on the show,
yes.
and a couple of my slides go with what he said. I'm going to show you some quick pictures from my trip. That's the hotel I stayed at each time. And,
wow, luxury.
That's breakfast. I actually slept out there, but it got really cold, 6 a.m. This map is really useful. So buy a map in Atar. They're not really available in the capital of Nouakchott, but you can probably get it near. These are floating all over the place. Very useful map because it shows you all the little trails and roads. This just shows you the fishing industry in Nouakchott, the capital. I've got a lot of videos of my trip on the YouTube channel, and so I didn't want to go through them all. Thank you for showing that video, though. I just figured I'd switch over.
Okay.
But yeah, in 2009, I went there on Google Earth. I went there for the first time, and I just wanted to stop here and ask you if you had any questions about the trip specifically, because I'm not going to go too much into driving around. I took a lot of video and showed some pictures. I have my opinions about the Richat structure, and
well, in that
I do
video,
believe it was part of an ancient civilization.
In that video, as you say, you describe the landscape as, it's very Mars-like, and it is. You just see, huge rocks, and it's very difficult to even drive over. Do you have a sense of when you're on the ground, rather than looking down on it from a Google Earth video or GPS, when you're driving into the middle of the Richat structure, is there any?
Yes.
Do you have any sense of that you're in some place important, or from the ground level, does it just look like a pile of rocks and sand?
Well, I think for people who don't know, it might just look like rocks and sand. It is very vast, and because I was always aware where I was at all times. I almost want to open up the map to show you. Let's use this. This is the thumbnail for Jimmy's video that changed my outlook back in 2018. And he shows this picture. Now, you don't see the edges here. You're only seeing the 3 rings. And, when you're going through mountains, you're going through a valley. I'd like to find a better picture. But you really have to know what you're looking at. I think you're probably right. Most people feel like they're just looking at rocks and sand. It's 50 miles wide. Let me find a better picture for you.
Okay.
That was just a thing here. So like I was saying, Jimmy told us about Herodotus and how
the father of history.
Pardon?
The father of history, Herodotus.
Correct. This book was about the Persian War. And I do have because we were talking about Plato, so I thought I'd show this to you. There's the castle, probably the thing that intrigued me the most and made me start looking at this full time, like every day, 8 hours, starting after Jimmy released that video. And then I went there. And unfortunately, the castle is modern day. It was a French fortification for war games. I can talk about that. And by the way, everything I'm talking about, I've talked about already on my channel. It's just kind of hard to sift through because it's so big.
Okay, hang on. Don't go too quickly. Go back to the castle, please. And okay, so this castle was a French fortification that was built, obviously in relatively more modern times, on the site of the Richat structure.
Probably 1870.
1870, okay.
Yes. Maybe I didn't want to do it, but maybe I should open up Google Earth and show you in Google Earth. That might be a little bit easier to understand where we are. So I'm just opening that up now.
Okay.
There are actually 3 of these located.
3 castles?
The other, this one now kind of referred to as, you can call it the castle, or you can call it the, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take away all this words. If you need to know names of stuff, let me know.
Yeah.
But as you zoom in here,
there it is, the Eye of Africa.
The Eye of Africa. Let me just zoom back out a little bit. I call this the corner of the eye, and this over here is the city of Tar. And so you kind of have to travel across this part here. That's the Adrar Plateau. It's 2,000 feet higher than over here. I'm going to talk about that later. But zooming in, you get to the center island. So how many rings do we really have? We have one, two, and then we have the center circle. It has mountains around the ring. So as you zoom in, you go to the center looking for something, and you do find this little kind of like some people living there in the middle. But the castle is over here to the east a little bit. Now this little oasis of trees is also some type of antiquity, but you can see barely the castle right there. And now I'll zoom in. And this one is so nice to look at. It's so perfect looking.
Okay, but why did the castle that was built in the 1870s by the French, why is that significant? I think you described that as was that kind of a game changer that got you back on Team Richat? In other words, now I believe it was Atlantis, perhaps?
It didn't. I rushed there. This is the first place I went. And I think this shape here just boggled my mind on the corner. I had no idea what I was looking at. I do want to say that Google Earth has taken another scan and the quality has decreased. So unfortunately, there's better shots of it. I guess, Jimmy, he said, what is that, a castle? And this was where Poseidon's temple was supposed to be, according to other research. So the first thing he wondered is, was that really a castle? I expected to find high walls, and I expected it was probably not ancient, but I'd already kind of figured out it was probably a fort, but in the end, we found out it was even less than a fort, just the piles. And they must have had somebody in charge. The commander told all the soldiers, start lining up rocks, and they put out string. I believe they put out string and followed the string and created these fortifications. There's two others, but one of them's kind of faded. And I don't think I answered your question. Did I?
No. Well, I was just curious as to why we're focusing on the castle that was built in 1870 and what that has to do with Atlantis.
Right. Well, the connection to Atlantis was with Herodotus, and visiting Atlantis was a documentary that Jimmy had based some of his facts on. And so the castle was brand new, but it was the most mind-boggling thing for me. So I'm going to show you my face. But, for me, when I saw that, my mind was blown and I couldn't figure it out. And that's the type of person I am. When I look at something and I can't figure it out, I stay looking at it.
Got it. So the castle, in other words, the castle was what sort of grabbed your attention and maybe drew you to that area.
It did.
Okay.
Well, the center of the Richat.
Okay.
Remember, Josh and India Archaeology, they got there first on the same day.
Right.
And so going to the center was obviously important for so many people. And the roads take you to the center. So it's the natural direction when you visit. If you have a guide, he's going to take you that way. And unfortunately, for my second trip, that was part of the problem. I didn't want to see the things that they try to show everybody normally. I wanted to see new stuff. So that was part of the communication issue the second time I went.
And you mentioned Jimmy a couple of times, just so people know. Jimmy Corsetti, who, like Dave Edward, another Army veteran, and David was on the podcast and the YouTube channel a couple of months ago, I guess. Gave credit to Jimmy Corsetti and also gave a shout out to you for your work as well, David. So where did you want to go next then? I don't want to disrupt your presentation here, but what's
I'm going to look at first. I think I showed you what I didn't show you everything. It took a good 2 years after that video came out, and I actually going for me to learn a lot of stuff. And it's kind of funny because it was all like you had mentioned. I was really immersed in the UFO scene in my youth, and when your parents are pushing stuff every day, you just want to go the other direction. So, but this whole thing has brought me back to ancient aliens mainly, We've got a lot of new things happening with so-called UFOs and APUs, they call them now. And
UAPs, yeah.
UAPs, sorry, UAPs. I try to watch, but at the same time, I know there's so much CGI out there. I really can't wait till. I mean, the stuff that we have been presented by the government, I do think this is all real.
Do you want to get into how?
Ancient
Do you want to get into how
people?
Atlantis was created?
Yeah, let me get back into the presentation and show you the slides I have about the beginning. Actually, that was my third point. How do I think it was created? Sure, I'm going to rush through some slides though.
That's okay.
Very
if I need you to slow down, I'll tell you.
Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me the proverbial slap. How's that? You can see that. Now, this is the main argument. Let me just make sure I didn't go back over something. Yes, yeah, I did. No, I didn't. Okay. So Chris Holworthy, right away, what happened was right after Jimmy's video, I had a kind of a semi-viral success with a map video, ancient maps. So I had a lot of people contacting me and giving me information. And one of the videos that I found that really had a great background history and a good explanation of why it's was called an island and other stuff. It starts at 8:44 in this video. And the great slide that he shows here is why would a shoal of mud block entry to an island in the middle of nowhere? Part two of that, and I have the text that this is the English translation, saying go through the columns of Hercules and right across from, facing the region of Gades or Gadiera is Africa. It's not out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. If you look at the words, it says it faced. Where does it say that? Right here? It says the extremity of the island towards the Pillars of Hercules, facing the country which is now called the region of Gades. And even later, the name of the twin that received it is the same as this Greek map. This is actually a map that was based on Herodotus. This is a Herodotus map. I just showed it to you a moment ago. I'll go back. Actually, I have a better one, so I'm going to go forward. So in short, this is kind of like the idea right now that ancient Taman Reset Paleo River that doesn't exist anymore separated Libya from the island or country of Atlantis. I'm going to keep going because I really want to show you a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So the question is, how did this information get on the Temple of Sais? And
hold it. Stop right there. What do you hold it? Got to stop you right there. What is the? What do you mean by the Temple of Sais? That's new information.
Well, Solon, I heard the term exiled, was exiled to Egypt. It's right up ahead here. Let me get to it. So Solon, during his career, and he was a statesman, so he was quite popular. But somebody said exiled. I think that was Randall Carlson. Solon went to Egypt, and he stayed in Sais, I guess, and he was talking about how old Athens and how old blah blah blah, and he was corrected by one of the priests and said, "You don't know what you're talking about. You can read what Plato wrote. You're but children. There's nobody old among you." So he learned about the story of Atlantis because the story was on the wall of the temple, which has apparently been torn down.
The Temple of Sais, that's where he learned about the existence of and how old Atlantis was. Solon then told his descendants. Yeah, and Solon told his descendants, and Critias, was it Critias that was related?
And that's what David Edward was saying. There's two Critiases. So Critias the elder was kind of the same time as Solon, but Critias the younger was the one apparently that Plato had gotten that document from, and I guess they were all related. Also, I think that Socrates really doesn't have anything to do with this, and I should get Aristotle on here, but Herodotus was alive and died actually before Plato was born. So I think the main message here is that all these Greek philosophers and historians all kind of believed that Atlantis was a real thing and went down 9,000 years earlier.
Got it. Okay.
And I do believe that there's other sources for this. Herodotus wrote 10 days. See, I want to make some things clear because I want to be honest. From Thebes, and this map was not created by Herodotus. This map was created from what he wrote.
Okay, and there's Libya, which is next door to Egypt, of course, just west of Egypt, right?
True. And by the way, I just listened to that Chris Tolworthy video again today, and he went, because it had been a couple of years, and he really went deep into the reason why. It was because they couldn't go east because.
Sorry, when you say the reason why what?
The reason why they were this trip that Herodotus wrote about.
Right.
I guess it was done by military.
Okay.
And it would be Greek military.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure about all this, but he wrote that they started in Thebes and walked westward. And one of the main reasons why, according to Chris Tolworthy, was because he's very, very well read on the subject. Because they couldn't go east anymore, but they wanted to renew their kingdom. And now I'm wondering, was it the Egyptians? But after 50 days, they reached the Atlas Mountains and met a tribe, Atlantis. And this was the connection that Herodotus made. Now, of course, I should be clear, and you can kind of see it in the map. It's very close to the Mediterranean Sea. They were at Lake Triton, Lake Tritonis, and that lake is up there by Carthage. I'll pull it up on the map and show you, just so you have a reference, because I think it's quite far from the Richat Structure. It's right up here. And so they started in Thebes. They went to the first tribe, Ammonia. Second one, I can't pronounce it. The third one, Garamantes. The next one is notable because it's Atarantes, which is actually the name of the city down here. And it's right next door to the Richat Structure. So Atar and Atarantes may have a connection. And then last, about here, is where Lake Triton, or Tritonis, was located. And that's where they apparently about 10 days south. So out here somewhere. So, but remember, this is 500 BC, not 12,900. And the end of Atlantis was actually not necessarily the beginning. It's not like they built that super civilization. And I have to be honest about one more thing. When I mentioned, was this Atlantis? It's kind of not really well put, because I believe there was advanced ancient technology all over the planet. I think I can prove it today. And I don't want to call them all Atlantis, because they were all over the world. And I believe that Atlantis did exist in many places, perhaps even the Azores, probably the Azores, but right. At the same time, most likely Africa.
Right.
Let me kind of take a look at, because when I see these thumbnails here, I have a better idea of what's coming up.
Okay.
So, did you have any questions at this time? I wanted to kind of get into the description of the Richat.
Right. Just very quickly, just give us some timelines here. Do we know when Atlantis, do we know when the Richat Structure, which may have been the capital of Atlantis, when that was created? And then we haven't really discussed how it was created.
Plato wrote that Poseidon created it. He also wrote that it was half natural and then it was changed by man. I can tell you how I think it was created.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to put this picture up. I was going to kind of say that it's coming very soon.
I don't want to.
Yeah, slides real quick.
Yes, please. I don't want to throw off your presentation. So just go ahead.
I've got attention deficit disorder. But what I should mention about we're looking at the Richat Structure kind of southeast from the northwest.
Got it.
And as you can see here, this is a shoreline. Now, I don't want to be like using Google Earth to go around this. I'd love to do it with 3D. But my main point here is there was a big body of water here that was not part of the whole Richat. I'm going to say this. The big, thick red line was the ancient Tamanrasset Paleo River. And as you can see, this red line out here represents where the water levels would have been. So it would have exited into the Atlantic Ocean way out here.
Right.
But I do believe that there was a major, not only lake, but also canals that probably led out down here as well. And so this is kind of my theory, that these small ones were probably canals, and they're just placed there randomly, but to show that there was like a system of water. and a lot of people complain, oh, there was no, it was even forget, 500 kilometers away from the Atlantic Ocean. How could it be in the sea? Well, I think it was served by the ancient Tam and Reset, but they look at this other picture. You can see the North Shore. There's what's called a playa lake over here on the left. It even has a little dam that somebody built probably 1,000 years ago that tried to grab the water, and that's actually about 2,000 feet lower. Here, I've got the topography right here. So my main point here is that the sand comes over it. We don't know where that. We don't know where that. I believe this was a whole sea right here,
Okay.
especially with this weird eyebrow thing. I call that the eyebrow. And I think this was a big sea right here.
We should point out, though, that the Sahara at this time was green. It was the green Sahara.
Sure.
It was a verdant land.
I think the river was even still good about 500 BC. The Taman Reset was still running. It may not have been as strong as when 9,000 years earlier. I believe that was the main way to get in there. Let me go forward. Did you have a question?
No, keep going.
The main point is north of the Richat was a really large body of water. Whoops.
Okay.
And not just there, but later I'll show you a lot more canals that I found down here. So the question is, was there a body of water here on the south side? Now, if it rains heavy, there's a couple of rivers, but would that have been full of water? And this is the big question. Like I said, a lot of people contacted me, and one person I really want to give a shout out to is Zero Control. As you can see, he only has 190 subscribers, so I hope that first put the oxygen mask and subscribe to me, and then subscribe to him.
Okay.
He was the one that showed me the eyes of Atlantis. He calls them the eyes of Atlantis, or actually, he calls them the eyes of the Sahara. I changed the name, but these things are like mounds, but they're all over the place. I changed the angle here. That's the true angle. Well, actually, that's false because there you can see it's not north. These things are mounds that are placed everywhere. So when we talk about a flood scrubbing everything, that's when I start to wonder, is it possible or is it not possible? But these eyes of the Sahara are all over the Sahara.
And what are they?
They change.
What are they, and what do they mean?
Well, they're okay. Mainstream calls them tumuli or tumulus. They say it's a burial ground, which maybe it is, but they're pretty big. And would they have been larger humans or giants? That's the main question. Or, as Anthony from Zero Control says, I'm looking at the camera, but I realize you can't see me. As Anthony from Zero Control says, he believes it's all about water. So I'm not going to, I just want to say one more thing about these things is that's Arizona. So I think I found one in Arizona, but I'm not 100% sure.
So whoever built them in the Sahara, and are they connected to Atlantis or the Richat Structure? These eyes of Atlantis.
You know, I asked about them and I visited one. I don't have the picture ready, and it's not very perfect. You can find it on my channel. I believe it's probably after the cataclysm.
Okay.
But they're very big. Like this thing goes on like for 2 or 3 football fields. The ones type A, those are all over Morocco.
All right.
And these antennae go out a really long distance, and they're really beautiful. I don't want to talk about them too much now, but it's something to note.
All right.
Another thing is another friend talked about this curve. Her name is Michelle. When I first started, she pointed this out, and it looks like that's ancient megalithic terraforming to me. And furthermore,
hang on. What do you mean by okay? Hang on. Ancient megalithic.
Sorry.
Yeah, ancient megalithic terraforming. What do you mean by that? When I think of terraforming, I think of, for example, we could recreate an atmosphere on Mars, and maybe melt the ice caps, and turn Mars into once more a hospitable planet. So what do you mean in the context of this megalithic terraforming?
Well, megalithic means big, or using stone. Lithic means stone, right? And the mega is the center, the middle. I think there was a Neolithic is new stone. megalithic, and I guess Paleolithic is the old stone.
Right, right.
And so maybe I should be using Paleolithic in some cases. Terraform means to change the land. Terra means land, and forming means to change.
Right.
And so I'm going to show you a lot of examples of it. But the question is why did they do it? And you mentioned the Mars example, but why would people older than Atlantis or as old as Atlantis do this stuff? And I can say two reasons why. I'd like to just give you the answer without making you wait. I think it's water control and like Zero Control mentioned, and also ancient mining.
Ancient
to be
mining.
honest.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a few different types of mining that I'll show you. But this over here, I believe it was about water control. Wait, I gotta share the screen again. It's about probably water control. Like I mentioned earlier, somehow the water had to get from the Tam and Richat River to, say, into the eye. And there is a shoreline. Actually, right now you can see a double shoreline.
Yes.
So you had many years at one level and many years at the next level. Over here, it looks like just one shoreline, but then later down below it. But over here, this canal, very straight, right? I didn't get close up into that, sorry. But that canal goes around to the other side. Let me go back to this one. So if there's water being supplied from the Tam and Richat into the Eye of Africa, I think it must have come around the front, or maybe it came through some canal that is long washed over, because I don't find any canals up here.
Okay.
I think it came around the front. And I think it came through this canal. Maybe there were other ways. And by the way, when I say that, I say that if this was, and I see the shoreline, so I don't even want to say if. I think water was supplied here. Was it Atlantis? Was it Plato's Atlantis? I don't want to say that, but I think that this is one of the best choices because of all the evidence with water. And down here, another thing that I haven't brought up yet is the machining. So I talked about Michelle's arc, which was just there, that arc. But Michelle by the way, I don't know who Michelle is. She won't tell me anything personal. She's keeping a mystery, but I have to give her credit. She also has tried to show me stuff over here. Now, another viewer calls this Manhattan because it looks like a city.
Yes.
It's about 100 square miles. And what Michelle showed me in the beginning was this type of lines. And I'm the type of guy, I don't want to get distracted. I looked at that and I said, I don't have time for that. If I had been a little smarter, I would have looked closer, because now I'm convinced that's not canals, that's quarrying. And why they did it, I don't know. But when I look at this picture here and this picture here, in 2018, I said, oh, that's natural. Wow, nature's beautiful. But now I can tell you that I believe that that's all ancient quarrying, and I think Randall Carlson believes that too, even though he's not Team Richat.
When you say he's not Team Richat, yeah, we should point
Yes.
out, when you say Team Richat, not Team Richat, you mean those that believe the Richat structure or the Eye of Africa is Atlantis, and those who do not believe.
Right. And Randall's been studying this for a long time. He told me directly that he's read, I mean, I was in the same room with him and he was talking at me, and it was kind of embarrassing because he kind of said, I've read more than just a couple of Wikipedia articles. And he did put me in my place because, I am a newbie when it comes to this. But he has read different versions. He even learned the ancient Greek and went over it. So this is something he studied for a while, and he's Team Azores. And I could show you some plateaus out in the middle of the Atlantic that he thinks could be a possible civilization. I've got my arguments against why, and even in the early videos, he said I like to stick to what Plato wrote, but I am sticking to what Plato wrote when I tell you some of this stuff, and even though it's not the same size.
Well, but both could be correct. The Azores could be part of Atlantis. Bimini Road could be part of Atlantis. And the Richat structure could be the capital, because we know that there were how many kings, right? There were one for each province, or princes, I guess, right? So
5 sets of twins.
Yeah.
And Atlas was the first, and then his twin brother Gadieris got what was across from Spain. And yeah, if you listen to what Dave Edward had said, there was one specifically for the Azores.
Yes.
And remember, the water levels rose 400 feet, so things got buried.
There you go.
They did.
Okay.
I think it's important to just not get too emotional over it. I've had people telling me that it's in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and I don't want to call them crazy, but I'm thinking it. But I try to be friendly.
All right. Well, here's the thing. Carlson maybe suggested that you were a newbie, or you called yourself a newbie, but you've been there, and you were there twice, so you should be credited for that.
Well, thank you for that. And and I think I've learned a lot that was from what I've seen in Google Earth as well. But this place that I've circled right here is a place that I was not in the middle of it. This is I call that Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. Why? I'll tell you why. But first, I'll show you. That is the highest place in the Adrar Plateau. Okay. And you can see that word right there in the circle. That's Attar, the city, Attar. And you have to climb up the mountain right there. So this is a place where there's two parallel canals that I visited. And those canals, in my opinion, no way are natural. I know that you can't see them now, and I can show you more later. Maybe some of your viewers will ask questions, and I did do videos on it. But what I haven't been able to really get deep into is Rudolph. He's got a nose, but when you look at Rudolph and you realize it's the highest place, when you get closer, that line, that is a quarrying line of some sort. Whoops, why did it not? Well, I didn't get all my pictures ready, but I'll just say this. I'm going to talk about it more later, but you can see Rudolph right between the parallel canals. I think that means that there must have been a lot of, this is the Adrar Plateau. I think that it must have served as maybe even just flood control, because they're not big. It's not big enough for boats, but they're very straight. They're a good 20 feet wide. I mean, they're big enough for boats, but they're not big enough for armies. However, I do have good news about that. I kind of messed up because I know that I'm talking about this later, so I didn't want to get too deep into it. But this Rudolph, and if you get close to the nose, there's a second one over here. You can see very clearly that they have ancient activity separating that. However, I'm kind of stuck with this next slide in front of me, and we're talking about the creation of the Richat. There's a lot of people. Of course, the answer is dome geology. Have you heard this already?
No, dome geology, no.
That's even David will say this, because this is the mainstream belief. I'll show you that in a second. Let me just get there. First of all, this is, I talked to you, I showed this to you before. You can see these names down here. The closest place to the Richat is Tassili Niger, I believe, Giza, and then of course it goes over to South America. But when you look at this, it goes right through the Richat. So when you have these ancient sites, and by the way, this is not a flat Earth map. I've been called out for that. It's an equal azimuthal projection map.
Okay.
But it does show this ancient, maybe even equator, and where Alaska would have been the North Pole. And I think that if this was truly an axis shift of some sort, it must have happened well over 100,000, maybe a million years ago.
So let me just explain what we're looking at here. You've plotted all of these ancient sites, including the Giza Pyramid, including the Nazca Lines, of course, from Peru, Easter Island. You mentioned the closest to the Richat structure is Tassili and Niger. Tassili Niger. That's the closest to the Richat structure. So all of these ancient sites are all located on, as you called it, kind of an ancient equator, but they're all on the same latitude.
Possibly.
Same latitude.
Well, I guess if you start with, okay, first of all, I should say I didn't create this. I got this in the early beginning, and it was floating around, but it just seems like if it would have been the same. Okay, all I can say is that if you take the circle, and I have measured it, and put it over the existing equator, which is right there, it's the same exact size. So it seems like it represents some type of ancient equator, but of course I don't have evidence of that.
So is this to suggest, David, is this to suggest that because all of these ancient sites are all located on that ancient equator. That can't be by accident. What does that mean? That there was perhaps the same builders? Does it suggest that there was some coordination, some contact between all of these?
Well, if you look at the sites, and I've studied some of them I don't even know still, but if you look at the sites, I think that you would see quickly they're not the same builders. Giza is completely different from what I think you see in the one that is, I don't see it. I went through all of these a long time ago.
Okay.
And the reason why I've showed this with the show, the possibility of a ley line, it could have been an ancient ley line as well.
Right. That's what attracted them to build on that specific.
But here it seems to be the same size as our equator line. So I didn't create this, and somebody probably knows more about it. And if one of your listeners, by the way, I really am interested in hearing any input your listeners have, because if you hear me say something that's not true, or if you hear me say something that's a little bit wrong, I want to know it.
Well, maybe the last half hour, we'll go to the live chat, and we'll field questions from my and I've got a very faithful, dedicated group in the live chat, and they always come up with some great questions. And incidentally, I didn't say hello to them when we started the show because I wanted people to see that video. But everyone again in the live chat, YY and You Betcha and Jim Sharp and Not Gordian and all the rest. You know who you are, but welcome once again. All right, David, where do you want to go to next?
I want to get to that creation, so I'm just gonna, I'll go a mile a minute because I already know that I'm not going fast enough.
Okay.
But as you can see here, I was definitely inspired by Brian Forster in the early years, even before Jimmy's video. Michael Tellinger, the reason why I'm bringing that up, first of all, I think most of your viewers know, so I'm not going to start getting into their philosophies, but these stone circles, I found these. So this is an aerial shot of some that I found. This is in South Africa. However, in the Mauritania, we also have some. Now, they're not perfect, but what were these things? And the basic concept is that they were, or the idea that Michael says and everybody is that they were gold processing, maybe settling tanks of some sort. I mean, nobody builds houses with circles in them that you can't enter. These aren't rooms. And
so it's part of a mining operation.
Yeah, and that's where I'm headed with this whole presentation. I just wanted to show you two more where people have actually moved into these things. And so that's like a modern day image of people, and maybe these little tiny doorways were broken through. I mean, this is stones. These things are made of hundreds and thousands of stones if you looked at what Michael's shown. Also, the number 43200, I promised I'd get rid of this. I do have a Twitter. But
hang on. I got to stop you. You just threw out a number 143,200, but you didn't explain it. What do you mean by that?
The pure, because I'm assuming most of your viewers know.
Don't assume anything. Yeah, don't assume anything.
I learned it from Randall Carlson, and if you know, the Great Pyramid is 143,200 of the actual size of the planet.
Right.
I didn't get into how. I don't want to get into it because I learned it from Randall.
Okay.
And these numbers, it's just amazing, the sacred geometry and some of its connections to ancient knowledge.
Right, just very quickly, according to the Emerald Tablets, the Greek god Thoth said he built Giza, and also there's so much, apparently you can tell from the pyramids, including, it's like a stone calculator or a stone computer. You can tell, based on the dimensions of the pyramid, how quickly the Earth travels around the sun.
That I haven't heard, but I've heard so much of this stuff that I totally believe it. I'd like to know more about that. We just had our spring equinox, and I was talking about how so the number of seconds in one day is 86,400, and since half a day is dark, half a day is light, the pyramid apparently is 8 sides, not 4, and that represents 43,200 seconds for the day during light time, and it's a vernal equinox marker in addition to everything else you just said.
Right.
But I didn't come here to talk about the pyramid. I came to talk about the Richat Structure and also some of the other stuff that it's led me to. The pyramid, so many people do it, and so I don't really feel, I've never been there. So, and even if I had visited to kind of just parallel what everybody's doing, I think it's not right. So I focused on the Richat.
All right. But what you're pointing out,
the Pyramids map.
I'm just saying you're pointing out that the evidence of ancient advanced technology by the pyramids. Okay,
sure.
Go ahead.
Exactly. That's why I mentioned Brian Forster, because of all his videos of all the machining that was done in Egypt. But I'm seeing stuff going across the Sahara that was far more impressive. Let me go through. This was the Pyramids map. David probably mentioned this ring over here on the right. But yes. I just say it's showing the Tam and Richat River here. It's there. This is an image of what it really looks like.
That map came from like 1513, incidentally. That's a 1513. People familiar with Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods, that map was published in that book as well.
Yes, that's the Pyramids map. And that's I had heard about it, but yes, I did read. I have to be honest, I was painting a house in northern Taiwan. I was making like $50 a day, and I listened to all his books while I was working. So when I say I read it, I was listening, not reading. Audiobooks, I love them. And yeah, I learned everything he knew about this underworld, and I'm going to later talk about his America Before book as well. I'm just going to zip through. The Tam and Richat River could have been the way to access all these places in Africa. It used to exist. Watch that. This is from the Michael Tollinger video. And Hanno went there and he described this place. But let's be honest. If you're at the mouth of, now this is the Amazon flipped around. So it's just an example. But if you're here, you can barely see both sides of that. According to this, if you're at the ocean level, you can barely see 10 kilometers. So, of course, they're going to call it an island when they cross this ancient Paleo River, or this ancient river that was as big as the Nile.
Okay.
I got this all from Graham Hancock, by the way. All these tribes that used to exist, and these octagons, these earthworks, this is all from his, this came from Randall Carlson, actually, but it was in relationship with Graham's information. And this is the actual shot of one of these places that still exist. This is a golf course, so fortunately the golf course didn't destroy it. These ancient mounds are getting destroyed. Clovis first, that was the big problem between Graham Hancock and people who wanted to argue. No, Clovis was first. But now we've seen...
Okay, when you say Clovis was first, hey, I got to stop you there. You're going too quickly, David. Clovis was first. What do you mean by, what does that mean? Clovis was first.
It's an archaeological dig.
Okay.
And according to this is Ali Bai's everyday history everyday video. Ali Bai. I love this, but it represents mainstream history. And according to him, 11,000 BC, I guess that's 13,000, right before the great Younger Dryas cataclysm, Clovis was found. And anybody that would say, oh, they weren't first, here's another tribe, blah, 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 these archaeologists would get ridiculed and canceled. And this is one of Graham Hancock's, one of his biggest problems that he talks about, is how Clovis was first. But wait till I show you these new... okay, so the idea is that the ice sheet, there were a couple of them up there, got hit by some type of impact, maybe an explosion over, and I think it was an impact because I see the Great Lakes right there. And what you've got is you've got these Carolina bays. Now, unfortunately, this survey only shows part of the country, and this is one of our biggest challenges. This, by the way, I want to give credit to Antonio Zamora. He's like the master with the Carolina bays.
Okay, again, you got to stop. Carolina bays doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you explain what we're talking about here.
These are the bays right here. These lines down here, north and south, that represents what I'm showing you here.
Yeah, but what are they?
This is some type of... Yeah. There is giant elliptical bays that are literally... I met the guy who wrote the paper, and his boss was trying to figure out it was a politician, what is this big huge thing on my land?
Like it's getting gouged out of the earth.
Yeah, it's like there was a large explosion. I'll take a look that started from here and ended up with all these bays. I mean, and they're overlapping each other, so it must have been more than just a single event in a way. It was I think that when you see them overlapping, you know.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
what
I don't
you're
want to talk about what Antonio's done.
okay, but what you're describing
he
here, where you're going here, is you're trying to explain what destroyed Atlantis.
Yeah, let me show
Okay.
you the other side. Yes, what destroyed Atlantis and also destroyed North America.
Okay.
Unfortunately, these scans here are very few. I wanted to see over here in Texas, and I saw this. This is Clovis now. So I saw this one line over here, and I was searching and searching, but apparently that line's a little wrong. It belongs over here, right where Clovis is. The city of Clovis is right there.
The ancient
Every
city.
red dot represents a strike.
Okay, a
Every
strike
red
from
dot, I'm
a
going to go closer.
meteorite or an asteroid
Some
or
type of
something.
impact.
Right.
That's Clovis.
Right.
So no wonder it stopped. No wonder they disappeared.
Got it.
And that's basically what everybody agrees on in my circle is that there was an ancient cataclysm worldwide.
And what year?
Not just,
What year?
well, I guess we're talking 12,900 years ago, but it was the beginning of not just the weather, but the black mat that is seen. I don't have a picture of it.
The black
But,
mat. What is the black mat?
Yeah, it's the younger, driest black mat. There's a KT boundary that shows when the dinosaurs died. And
Okay.
geologists carve away the earth and you can see a black line,
Okay.
and it's crystal. And then there's also one for 12,900 years ago.
Okay,
I can pull that picture up later, maybe during the break.
And this is when Atlantis kaput.
And even here, this is the Grand Canyon. I found these in my last video. I don't think that they're craters from an impact. Here's how I think the Richat was created.
Okay. All right.
Okay, mainstream says dome geology. And everybody uses that as their standby. I just don't see it.
Well,
And I'll tell you why.
what is dome geology? I don't understand what
I'll
dome.
show you. There's a paper that explains it. This is dome geology. Here we see upward displacement of rocks.
Okay.
I'm going to show you a picture. It's basically a bubble, like a volcanic bubble. It doesn't pop.
Got it.
But instead of, maybe it does pop in a little bit, and then it deflates and goes back down, and they say that that's why all these rings are created.
In other words, they're trying to come up with a natural explanation for why Richat.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, I get that with everything I do, and it's it's hard to receive sometimes, and I don't want to say bull, but sometimes this is the Richat. Here's my question about the Richat. What happened to all that content? I mean, looking at this picture, you've got a disc. I mean, ignoring the islands, you've got a 45 kilometer, 50 kilometer wide disc, 1,000 feet thick of material that's just gone.
Right. Where did they haul it away to? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's obviously natural. And when you look at the Drawer Plateau over here on the left and over on the right and down here, that's like slate. When you drive up the mountain, you can see how dense that is. And this is where I'm kind of going with that. You can see the difference here. 1217 is the bottom, and the top is white. It's 2,000, so it's about 800-foot difference. And what happened to all that material?
Right. All the rock, all the slate. Yeah.
And why is it? Okay, so that knowledge of the survivors didn't belong there. Okay, so this is a volcanic dome. It's inside a volcano. And I guess it pops or something and it deflates. And there's some other pictures of a geologic dome.
Okay.
And
In other words, what you're doing now is you're disproving the geological dome theory as to the creation of Richat. Got it.
Yeah, well, I'm not really proving it. I'm kind of setting it up to go against it. That's the Utah dome. By the way, I just want to say right now, I see signs of mining and quarrying on the top there. I believe that this, I sometimes wonder how old this is. No, I want to show you this. I think that this is a better, even though it's far-fetched, and yeah, put a gun up to my head, and I'm not going to say I'm 100% sure, this is a bolt of lightning on a car. And I have more pictures of the head, but what I'm trying to say is that the Drawer Plateau is so thick with, if the pyramid was an energy device, as some say, that's just, the Drawer Plateau is like a whole bunch of pyramids in one spot. It's like a million pyramids, all that dense stone. And the fact that it's on this node 20, of the ley line planetary grid, who I'm not really a big proponent of following ley lines. It's not exactly on the 20, but it's very, very close. And maybe this is one of the reasons why it was created. Well, you're still wondering how, and I'm going to get there. So as you can see in that maybe ancient equator, right, it's also coming out right about there. It's about 100 miles north of this line. I actually laid it out, and I can show you where that line hits. But my main point is coming soon that the Richat structure might be some type of electronic event. A lightning strike in a car, you can see the rings, the frequency inside that electric strike. And I sometimes wonder if radial discharge did not create this Richat structure.
A radial discharge?
I am not an electric universe proponent, to be honest. I don't want to say this was electric universe proven. I'm just saying that perhaps this Lynchburg patterns kind of match some of the rivers around this area. A lot of people think it was, and I think the way it looks that maybe the creation of the Richat structure was a Carrington event, something that could have started, legends of lightning, dragons in the sky. Mexico has their dragon, China has their dragon, and this is borderline electric universe. The squatting man, but is it possible that the squatting man was because of the creation of the Richat structure?
I'm sorry, but you're losing a lot of us. You're jumping around here a lot. I don't know what the squatting man is. I don't know what the electric universe. But anyway,
it's like a petroglyph. It's a petroglyph that's seen around the world. And I'm really sorry about that.
That's okay.
Let me get through. Let me just say that the Plato version is that Poseidon did it.
Right.
And the rest of the world has this squatting man petroglyph or symbol that is seen. It's not just seen in walls. It's part of culture. I know that's not the exact squatting man. That's an alphabet. It's the Berber tribe's alphabet has the symbol in it. So it's part of their culture.
And what does the squatting man have to do with what? Okay, what does the squatting man have to do with this?
Well, the squatting man, the electric universe people think that it was some type of a Carrington plasma event, that the Earth either discharged or received the discharge of some great amount of energy.
Got it. Okay.
And I even asked a lot of local people, but people think, and even that Plato's, not just him, but the Trident, that so many of these ancient people, this was a Bright Insight video, and he doesn't even understand my connection because I don't think he saw that, but there may be some connection with that symbol and the Trident that's seen on Poseidon. This is Poseidon, right? And is that Anu? And I don't know who this is on the left. But they all have these tridents.
Okay.
And maybe these were the creation tools that these... I mean, this is just putting it out there.
Got it.
Okay, the catastrophe that destroyed Atlantis, there's a couple of things I want to show you. How do I think it was destroyed? I'll tell you in a minute. I think you might find that interesting. Here's some foreshadowing about that. But there are some alternative. I'll go quickly. There's some, about the Chicago fire simultaneously had outbursts everywhere, don't you?
No, I didn't know that.
That could be from a comet tail. And maybe the whole tradition or the whole superstition of witches having tail or brooms is because of a comet tail coming along and starting fires.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, I don't know. Yeah, that's one. Now, if you know Robert Schoch, he thinks that it was probably some coronal mass ejection occurred. And I believe that I don't know if I believe that with what Plato describes. The coronal mass ejection was supposed to mess up a lot of ancient megalithic stone. However, in my opinion, I think that it's something completely different. Oh, this is another one. The Maghreb Sea. We have the Maghreb Sea used to be right there by the Taman Reset, and there's a crater. It's the Tenamore crater. And the Tenamore crater is right there. I don't want to show you the wiki page or everything, but it's right there. Some people say the Tenamore crater got struck, and that's what caused the flooding. And again, it sounds really credible, but I think that when you look at the rest of the Sahara, it seems like the whole Sahara was flooded. And now it's time to say my idea. Yeah, because I do believe that it could have had something to do with that, the Tanamor crater, but I think that maybe there was a lot more than just one. Now, when it points at the Richat structure, I'm not trying to say that the Richat structure was actually created by a strike. Remember, it's 45 kilometers wide. That's another reason why I don't think it's dome geology, because it's 45 kilometers wide. Volcanoes are only like maybe 4 miles wide, right? Maybe
Right.
even less.
Good point.
And so these craters all line up. And I'm not saying it's what happened over there in North America, but perhaps there was what's similar to a string of pearls. Even, okay, let me go back. I forgot to mention, wait, where is it? These craters, I went through them. I even visited this one, the Semisiat Dome. It's very shallow. When you're standing in there, you'd say that's not a crater. But what else created that? By the way, if I don't want to leave you hanging, the location of that, I call it the donut. It's very close, right here.
Okay.
So you drive right by it when you visit the Richat. And that's one of the places I went on my second visit because I wanted to see what's going on in there. So this could be one small strike in addition to all these other craters. There's the Timichat Galaman, I guess they found it, and the Oelo crater. It's all part of this line, except most people won't agree with me. That, what's called the heart of salt, that white dot in the center ring, most people think that's a volcano. But I don't think so. I've been there and I looked at it. I took this video and it's also very shallow, but it doesn't look like a volcano to me. I was standing right there and I did a little video of it. And to me, it looks like it's a sand-filled crater. And if this was all filled with water when Atlantis went down, then it would have filled up with water and sand. So I do believe, and take a look at this topographical map. You see, if I don't care if it's dome geology that created the Richat, or if it's my far-fetched electric discharge, but what happened to the mountains that were right here? Wouldn't it be a nice ring? Instead, you've got this. I think it's a crater. Randall Carlson says it's a Mars system displacement ring. That's a fancy word for volcano, I guess.
Okay.
And personally, I think this could have been the crater that was hit and took out Atlantis. It's right in the middle, bullseye. It's right in the middle. You've got crater concentric ridges. There's a lot of alluvial fans that cover it, but you go back to the source point where the alluvial fan starts, and you get the ridge, and it goes around. There's a lot of alluvial fans. But to me, what happened to those mountains? Wouldn't this be more likely? But instead, you've got this circle missing over here on the left. You've got it's even lower than the rest of the structure. It, to me, has to have been some type of event that was able to not only remove the crater but dissolve and disintegrate the mountains. So that's it. I gave you my theory on how it was destroyed.
All right, David, we're going to take a time out. You can get some water, and for those of you in the group chat, if you'd like to get some questions, he's ready to go. Is that a San Pellegrino? Nice. All right, for those of you in the group chat, get your questions ready, and it's easier for me to find them in the group chat if you could, type question and then actually state your question, and try and keep them fairly short. And I'll work through as many as we can. All right, a quick time out, and then more of our Strange Planet monthly live stream to come. Stay with us.
I'll mute my microphone.
Yes, please. And we are back. David Stig Hansen stays with us, and we're talking about the Richat Structure, many of whom believe is Atlantis, or at least, let's say, the capital of the greater kingdom of Atlantis. The Azores could be Atlantis. Bimini Road could be Atlantis. Other locations.
Doggerland.
Sorry, which one?
Doggerland.
All right. Let's see. Before we get going, I had the supporter page up there a moment ago, and thank you all for your support of the YouTube channel. I also want to thank Deep Paul. He gets a special mention. He's in our top tier, the Star Chamber donor tier. And again, if you want to support the YouTube channel, you can go to, let's see, it is, what is the, that's not good.
Are we talking my channel?
No, my YouTube channel. Oh, it's all right. No, it's on the episode notes there for those of you. Let me see. I should be able to find that.
That's right. It's great. Sorry, I don't want to say the wrong one. Great. What?
Sorry,
Earth?
Patreon. It's Patreon. No, I'm just talking about my subscriber. It's patreon.com/Strange Planet. Sorry about that. I had a senior moment there to support the YouTube channel. Patreon.com/Strange Planet. And again, thank you to Deep Paul and all of those of you who support. All right, we are back. Let me get David back up there. Where are we here? There we are. Okay. David, I want to leave some time here for questions from the live chat. So, and hopefully you're getting them ready for those of you in the live chat. Where do you want to go to next? We've got about 10 minutes here, and then we can get into some questions.
Well, I still have a lot of stuff that I found out after I kind of realized. Oh, well, let me just keep going.
Yeah. All right.
Let me just share it. I'll share it, and
Okay.
I'll show you. The last thing I said to you was that I suspect a comet did strike right in the middle. But let me just say there was some things that took me away from the belief that it was not the Atlantis. Randall Carlson makes some pretty strong arguments. But one of the things he said a long time ago was that these outcrops in the structure were being quarried by someone hundreds and thousands of years ago. And even after my first trip, I didn't know what he was talking about. I thought I knew. I thought it was that white dot, the salt, the heart of salt. But there's actually quarry fields inside the Richat Structure. And now, unfortunately, I was so close, but I didn't visit those quarry fields. Are those clear enough?
Yes.
And, a lot of people argue and think those are animal tracks, but those are way too big. And the thing is that those quarries have been stripped. So somebody got all the rocks. I mean, there's some mega breccia left, but I've found over here, that's Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, also had some major work done to her, him, her, whatever. There's the head. And as you can see, the nose has this ridge going right through it, and you've got all these cut lines. Also, there's a second one. Now, I believe that those mounds might be overburden dumping.
What do you mean? What is overburden dumping? What does that mean?
Can I wait on that, and
Yeah.
I'll show you in just a moment.
Okay.
Basically, there's two more points I want to make about the Richat. One of them is that there was quarrying. Now, those two mounds happen to match in a line with two mounds I found in the Grand Canyon, and there's a bunch of quarrying around that. I'll show you that later. But I just wanted to point out that these mounds, while they look natural, may have been a product of after you mine, and I'm going to show you some examples of OB dumping in a moment, but after you mine something, you've got all this slurry or overburden to get rid of. And the question is, what did these ancient quarriers do with all that? Since you said we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to skip through, and I just want to say there's a lot of stuff going on all around the Richat. I know the guy that owns this oasis over here, and I'm invited to go camping there. So I'm looking forward to that in a future visit. But what I used to think was natural, now I've realized it's not natural one bit. It's actually a product of this ancient quarrying activity that's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. And if you know Randall, ask him where he got his information from. But if it's that old, and let's just say maybe even over, if you believe in the ancient alien theory that they were mining for gold, then maybe this was done by giants. And you had your guest, Mark A. what?
Mark Carpenter, Talking Giants, yes.
I saw that interview with him, and it was very inspirational. He connected a lot of dots for me at the end of that, but I want to keep moving here because of the time.
Okay.
So these quarry fields are on the north side of the Richat Structure, and you find them everywhere. You have to take a camel to go visit some of them. So I wasn't able to get up there. I thought I was. Okay, I had to show this. Doesn't that look like E.T.? It's a quarry field.
What are they pulling out of these
And
quarries?
I found,
what are they mining?
well, let's just say this, and I'm going to get more specific, but these lines are so thin, they're not taking out blocks. So I think they're taking out ore, and they're processing the ore and getting precious metals out of them. These are quarry fields I found all around. And I'm going to go quickly, especially this one in Tahsil Najar. I showed you this yesterday and the way it measures out. And, I don't know if we're going to have a lot of time, so I'm going to go through all these quarry fields that I keep finding. Sometimes they're crisscross parallel lines. That kind of says you can get some blocks out of there. But these lines are not crisscross, they're polygonal. You're seeing triangles. If you're going to cut up a birthday cake, are you going to cut it like that to serve? You can see lines. This is north. This is south north. This one you can see lines that go north south, except it's upside down, and you see lines that go diagonally this way and diagonally that way. This is all over the Sahara. Nobody's talking about this. Who were these miners? Okay, so this quarrying, the one thing that Randall Carlson said opened up my eyes. Sometimes it looks like they're melting the rocks. Now, before I get into the whole part two, I also have to say that canals are going through the Adrar. I walked down this canal, and it's a nice straight canal. If you compare it to natural rivers in the area, you're not going to find a straight line. Rivers that are natural are jagged and go back and forth. There's the Richat Structure, and that's what I was going to say. After I pondered what Randall was talking about with the quarries, I was like, if they were here hundreds and thousands of years, then there's no way this was an ancient city. It was just a big, huge place. And then I discovered this canal right here. It's right there. It's only showing 47 miles. It goes through the Adrar. I don't want to waste time going too close. This is another one. It's 5 miles long. You can kind of see it. That one that I found points right at the Richat Structure. So because of that, I decided, if it was important enough to carve these canals, these were found near the ancient Taman Rasset Paleo River.
Can I ask you something, David?
Hundreds over there.
David, I got to ask you a question.
Sure.
I mean, how could you carve out canals that are that long? I mean, what kind of tools, what kind of manpower would that have taken?
If I claim to know right now, then you could definitely call me out as being a BSer. I can't say. Well, you can look at these black lines. That I believe is also artificial. And those black lines, I think, were the overburden dumping from mining. The canals were probably used. So I think there were several phases in what we see happening in the Sahara. This is lower in Africa. It's not like it's just that one area. It's all over Africa. And people are carving. This is New York by the airport. Did you know that they call those duck ponds? But ducks can fly. I don't think you need to cut a canal for a duck. So that's right by the airport in New York. So I'm almost finished with the Richat part one. The point is there were canals and other ancient roads, maybe canals. That looks like a canal to me. But maybe they were actually just roads. Why were they created? Civilization existed there, and they needed to move stuff. And I found some that were so long. Also, mounds. This is an ancient quarry field in Algeria, in Tahsil Najir. But I don't know why that was there. It shouldn't have been there. But these lines, these roads. Now, that doesn't look like it's a road. It looks like it's a wall. trying to save the water, maybe. But I find these things all over the place, going through the Sahara. And and that sand dune is 1,000 feet tall. So if the sand dune is older than the line, what is that line? Is it a road? Is it a canal? The one at the top has something attached to it. Like, what is that, a toll booth? And then over here, you have maybe a canal because it looks like there's two lines. I mean, this is a thing. I found these quarries. There's one down there. There's one right up there. I'll show it to you. That's a really interesting one. And then they're surrounded by these ancient walls. And these walls are weird. They butt up against it, and then they come down here. It's very ornate sometimes, all going under sand, disappearing. And some are 180 feet wide. This one looks like it was a bigger one. Some are small, 50 feet wide. So these canals, they were the last thing that made me realize that some ancient civilization existed. Now, I do have a few more slides to show you, but at the same time, I don't want to be too overbearing.
No, that's okay. Well, let me ask you let me just ask you straight out. Do you think giants were involved in the digging out of these canals and quarrying of these mines? I mean, we're talking about, again, the time frame we're talking about is what?
Well,
20,000, 50,000, 100,000 years ago? I mean, most of humankind, they were hunter-gatherers. I mean,
right. If Atlantis went down 12,900 years ago, how long was it around for? 50,000 years? 40? Only a few? And if that's true, then somebody else must have carved all these canals up, because I think that some of these canals look like they're old, like 30,000, 50,000 years old. And also, when you look at them, I look at them in my videos because the way they come up. Sometimes, let me share again because, well, I don't want to do that just yet, but I'm ready to keep going. But the canals are major. I don't find canals in South Africa. I'm going to show you what I find in South Africa, along with other overburden dumping and mining and water control. And all these things seem like they were part of this major thing, like the Kalahari canals. I think that they're probably 100,000 years old, some of them, and maybe even 1,000,000 years old, like what I've seen in Utah and in Colorado. And I do have all this here.
All right, you want to whip through a few more slides? Again.
Yeah. And I do understand we're short on time, so please stop me. I'm going to run through these really quick because it's more of an introduction to the rest. Signs of ancient advanced technology around the world. Zero control. Again, I have to give him credit because he told me to go to South Africa. Not just South Africa, but all of Africa is part of this ancient meridian. Some people think that the Piri-Reis map was centered over the what's called the Nilotic meridian, which would be where Giza is, going all the way down to Adam's calendar. And no, they're not perfect. I followed them down. They're not exactly aligned. So I'm not trying to BS you on that. Some people think the Piri-Reis map actually looked down at this map. This was an explanation in Chariots of the Gods in 1970 about the Piri-Reis map. Sorry, I went too fast. There's a lot of stuff that goes straight down into Africa. Gold mines, and of course, the Michael Tellinger stone circles. Okay, I showed you that already, but what I'm trying to say is that that the Adam's calendar, a lot of people are unsure about this. I've never been there, but apparently they line up with Orion's stars. That depends on, keep researching on that because I want to see for myself. Also, some of these mounds look like they're put on top of plateaus. If you look underneath there, you see what look like quarrying lines underneath. This is a bad picture, but these mounds, I'm finding them all over. Some of them are quite special. I found like 4 or 5 of them in Lesotho. This structure is by the mound. I'll show you. This, I think, is like a channel. This is about 1,000 yards apart. And it seems like it was some type of a settling pond for gold that's been breached. But if you follow this line up, you come back, it comes back, that mound that I just showed you, I guess it's right in front, is right there on the line. So don't tell me this ancient line is natural, because the line that I'm talking about goes right along the front of this ancient mound. I've got some really cool stuff that I can show you in South Africa. And to me, it definitely was part of some, I swear to God, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I believe that the whole Lesotho Mountains were like a big old pile of processed mining overburden. Large scale mining is, I think it's apparent. There's a good series called Mind Earth. I don't know what happened to him. He doesn't respond, but that's a really cool series to check out. Okay. His mainly focuses on Peru, but I found it everywhere. This is, look, I mean, these look like they were mining blocks to me. Those are about 10 feet across. This is Algeria. And this quarry, this ancient quarry goes on for miles and miles and miles. If it's not a million years, it's got to be hundreds of thousands of years of work. So who was doing it? Was it just ancient humans? And why isn't anybody talking about it? And some of these mountains, they look like they've been liquefied and melted. This is it looks like you're the Matrix. So I'm talking about mining. And one of the things that you find in Africa is Mansa Musa's story, the richest man. He would have been the wealthiest man in history. And where did he come from? Just south of Mauritania too. And that's where they were mining gold, I guess. I want to go quickly. This is also in Lesotho, right next to South Africa. This is like 3 miles long. That little white speck is a house. That little white speck is a warehouse. And then still you've got this plateau with ancient intersections and a shortcut. And over here on this side, you've got this weird thing and maybe a settling pond. And if you look at this triangle, it's a perfect isosceles triangle, yet that track is wider than 10 houses.
Well, how do you date these? How can we date these? These canals and these structures. Is there a way of affixing a proper date to when they might have been created?
I don't know if those are canals. I don't know. I'm not a geologist. Right. I can say that it seems like they go for this white stuff. I think this white stuff is actually a byproduct from the mining. I'm going to show you. It's a byproduct from the mining from a previous phase. And then maybe later on, some newer people went back and said, hey, this mining slurry still has some valuable stuff in it. And so they went at it again. I wasn't there, but I'm seeing this from Google Earth, and it's making me realize something big. This is South Africa. This is that channel. It's 1,000 yards across that goes up into the mountains. It's like a perfect rectangle over on the right. You see a 90-degree angle right there. Yet that little speck is a house. Who made that 90-degree angle? A human? I don't know. And I showed you this. Maybe I think these are not natural mountains. These are so conical. Maybe they were burial mounds for giants. Or maybe they were just trying to get rid of some overburden dumping. But it doesn't seem like it's a volcano to me. And you can almost see a big difference between the two different layers. I took these pictures from Google Earth. One of them's been truncated. But the question I have is, have we been lied to about natural geology all these years? These walls, or is that a road or a track or a wall? This is in Madagascar, and it's going up onto a higher plateau. And was that like a track that these machines drove up to drop off or bring down? Are these piles slurry that they're dumped right on top of their own tracks? Which is older, the track or the mountain? This is back up in the Sahara. You can go to my Was This Atlantis and find any of these and visit it yourself. That one structure I showed you, it actually has an additional structure way out here. And that's 4.73 miles. So really, I don't know. That's why I think the word giants, these ancient shortcuts, I found more than one. And I just don't. And if you look here, you can see the track here is about 50 feet wide. But down below the shortcuts, they get thinner. So was this a two-way street, and then over here they separated? That's in Lesotho. I've shown you.
Right.
And honestly,
those look like the Nazca lines. That looks like almost like the Nazca lines in Peru, right there.
Well, this is in the Sahara, but I agree. It's quite shallow. And I talked to Brian Forrester. I asked him directly. I said, "Would the Nazca lines wash away in the rain?" And he said, yes, they would. So I think that we're just lucky that it didn't rain in that desert all those years, because we might have lost them. Everything's getting eroded. This is just a random shape I found in the Lesotho Mountains, but it's the same both sides from corner to corner, 50,000 feet. Yeah, and maybe I could have chosen this one, but 50,000 was a nice round number. So I just questioned these lines, and I questioned mainstream geology. Look what I found here, right near the Richat Structure. Now, you can't see
what
it.
did you find?
Google
Okay.
Earth is...
What is it?
This is a plateau. If I zoom in right there by the white,
right,
you can see these polygonal, not polygonal, sorry. I don't want to say crisscross parallel, but they're actually going in 3 different directions. And the question I have is, well, let's go back and look at it. This is a plateau sticking through the sand, so it's a little higher.
Right.
What were they trying to do? I think that you don't cut a cake like that to serve blocks of stone. I think when you do that, then you're trying to get to the ore, and you're trying to process it. Over here, it's actually Algeria, but it's not over by the Tassili Niger. I found these ancient quarrying, I call them quarrying lines, and you can see how the erosion has affected the edges of the plateau. This is pretty close to the Richat Structure. There's another one, and it's looking straight down. And Google Earth, every time they do a new scan, it gets harder and harder to see. Sometimes I have to use other maps.
Let me ask you a question, David, because
yes?
One of the things that we know from, I believe it's from Plato's Dialogues about Atlantis, is that they were very advanced in their agricultural techniques. And is it possible that those structures were, in fact, some type of irrigation system? Again, keeping in mind, this was a verdant land. The Sahara, it was the Green Sahara. Is it possible that that's what we're looking at, a very complex irrigation system?
Well, the way that these things seem to turn into cleared quarry fields, I don't believe this would be. Also, if you think about the delivery, I mean, maybe it's drainage, and maybe it's not really the delivery of the water, but the drainage to get it to go away. I do have some really interesting things, and I really wish I could open up the Google Earth. I kind of worry it might slow down the internet connection, but there's some water-related stuff. And as I mentioned before, Anthony, with Zero Control, he also believes it's all about water. And he's been doing this a lot longer than me, and he's got a lot of reason. He lives up in Canada as well, and he's I don't really focus up there, but he's done a lot of videos on what happened to Canada. You know, when you talk about the Cordilleran ice sheet melting 12,000 years ago, you would think there's not much of a chance for other stuff to happen up there, but he's found a lot of stuff up there. So it's kind of hard. By the way, he admits himself it's driving him crazy. It's driving him insane, and I can say that it's affected my mental state too. Realizing that I don't want to say we've been lied to all these years, but I just said it. Somebody's covering something up. And with the face on Mars, I was a little kid, and I was so waiting for that new scan. And then suddenly they came out with the new scan. I can't remember what year that was or which satellite got it. But when suddenly they gave us a strip of rocks, and the newscasters had said they finally rescanned the face on Mars and it's just a pile of rocks. I was like, wait a minute. This picture is nothing close to, what was it, Hoagland wrote that book?
Yes,
about
Richard C.
Cydonia.
Hoagland. Correct.
And it was just a strip, and it was obviously a scan that a satellite did, and I was like, where's what we already know is there? There's nothing there. They're lying to us. And then a few years later, I looked it up on the internet, probably more than a few, and found the replacement pictures that showed that it was just a pile of rocks, but it looked like CGI photos. So I think that in Google Earth, every time you look at stuff, it's getting harder and harder to see. I don't want to go into it, but it's especially the ocean in the Pillars of Hercules. If you go down in that water between Spain and Africa and try to look at any of that, it's just ridiculous. You've got all these scans stacked up on top of each other, and they haven't fixed it yet. Why isn't it fixed? So
they're trying to, there's something they don't want us to see. All right, you want to proceed? We're just going to go about another 5-10 minutes here, and then we're gonna
Sure.
Wrap it up. if
I'll go quick.
yeah,
I'll
okay,
go quick.
go ahead.
And I was going to get to the overburden dumping because I really think that it's related to why we're seeing all these artificial mountains. This is Tasil Najar. I've been talking about that. Are you able to see the red arrow?
Yes. Oh, wait a minute. No,
And
hang on. There we go. Yeah, now we can.
so when you go there, I've already shown you a bunch of that already. You get miles and miles of stuff. And I want to say one more thing. You get this 45-degree cut angle. So when you see the parallel lines, this is actually in near Senegal, near Mali, near what is it called?
Mauritania.
No, I meant to say let me not get distracted.
Okay.
It's near Senegal. So it's kind of far away from it's at the base of the Sahara Desert. You're seeing this activity all throughout Africa. Now in Utah, they call them the needles, and they say that these parallel lines just naturally broke apart, called weathering, right? Well, I don't believe that when you have three different directions. This is Utah. And in my opinion, if I'm right, it's 1 million years old. It's old. Whatever happened in Utah happened a long time ago. And the reason I say that is because when I was going to share some photos I took. I drove through the Canyonlands. This is the Canyonlands. And when you're down there on the ground, they do look like they're 1 million years old of weathering. It doesn't look like it's just 100,000. But those cut lines, that's Utah. It doesn't make sense to me.
You're saying
how could it be so straight?
Right. You're saying that's not weathering in Utah. That's similar to what you were seeing in the Sahara. These are ancient structures or canals or quarrying lines, but even
probably
older.
In my opinion, quarrying. It's right by the Colorado River. Going along the Colorado River, you've got all this weird activity that just doesn't make sense. I showed you that already, but here's the Grand Canyon. I mean, what made that line right there so straight? Natural Geographic. This is the Grand Canyon. And it's not at the top of the plateau, which is 6,000 feet. It's not down below by the river. It's at 4,000 feet. Later on, I can show you live pictures. I'm almost done. I also noticed you get perpendicular cuts away from rivers. So the rivers must be older. But look at the damage something did to get material, probably using the river itself as a slurry method of delivery. I mean, it's right there by the Colorado River in some cases. This is actually kind of in between Utah and the Grand Canyon. But these cuts, all right, overburden dumping. I just think that these ancient tracks, roads, or walls are a little bit too straight and too long to be natural. Here is this, of course, if I told you this was ancient, you would call me out. This is a diamond mine in the Lesotho Mountains. Now, I'm going to show you with my arrow. These are, of course, the strip mine pits. And over here, you see settling ponds. And over here, you've got the dumping. And if you look closely, and I have a close-up, you see these little dumps. That's one dump. That's 23 feet wide. And so it must have been a pretty big truck. You couldn't do that with your Toyota Tacoma. And so 23 feet wide. But if you compare that to what's called Planetary Valley, right next to Tasil Najir, it's actually in Libya. I said, was this the Matrix? Is this also overburden dumping that is ancient? And let's be honest, one of the smallest pieces is 200 feet wide. So when you talk about who did it and why, okay, if you look at the picture, I forgot the name of these orbs. But to me, it must have been something more than just mining, and it must have been like ancient concrete, and there must be separating precious metals out of there and then dumping it. But it's so big and very megalithic. This is Rudolph's nose. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer has a twin brother over here. Both of those mountains have a track going through them. Why would hunter-gatherers do that?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a road that's 94 miles long. Let me just keep going. This is just a random thing I found in the mountains, but it looks like it was created with a chef's frosting bag. This ancient slurry. Down in Lesotho, I did this. I found all these different tracks. Well, I think they must have been ancient mining hauling roads because they all stop at the mountain. And you can see these tracks quite prominently going through. So I followed a lot of them. Now that's hard to make out. I showed you that already. I'm going to keep going. The shortcuts. Here's the funny thing about those shortcuts. They have a road, a track, but when they get it to the edge, it seems like it literally cuts through this top layer of frosting, this stuff, possibly ancient slurry, a byproduct from their mining activity. But these plateaus, I wonder, were they actual plateaus that got carved down, or were they actually built up from dumping the byproduct? Maybe the Nazca lines have something to do with that as well. That's Nazca. But can you see the ridges here, these symmetrical lines that are on top of the mountains?
Yes.
And that's not really a ridge, but these walls, how did they create those? What machine? That's not the same one. That's a totally different one right there. Let me go back. That's number one. That's number two. They're pretty close to each other, but they've got this network of grid of these walls. This is South Africa and Lesotho all around there.
All right.
They're parallel. They're not perfect.
David, I want to jump in. I want to jump in because we're almost out of time, and I just want to get to a couple of questions here.
Sure.
Let's see here. Why?
I want to show you that water control thing.
This is from David B. David B. Are the pyramids and other ruins suspected to exist in Antarctica, part of Atlantis or an earlier civilization? I don't know if that's something you address or not. The pyramids and other ruins suspected.
It seems like if it were, they're old. I'm not going to get too far into that. I'm curious. I recently saw some images that were taken of Atlantis that were released. Of Antarctica that were released, and there were supposed things that we never saw down there, statues, and I don't know about the pyramid. I've seen. I don't really like that picture of the pyramid down there. I don't think that's unnaturally created, but at the same time, I do think that may have been an ancient civilization in Antarctica.
Yeah.
I mean,
let me just point out.
It's hard for me to make the connection because it's so far away from everything else. I don't think it was Atlantis. I don't think it was Atlantis. 12,900 years ago, the people attacking Athens, I don't think they had any connection to Antarctica. But that doesn't mean there wasn't an ancient advanced civilization there.
Right. And they were defeated by let's call them the Proto-Greeks, because they weren't actually ancient Greeks, but the Proto-Greeks. They were defeated by the Proto-Greeks. So they weren't this huge military, dominating military force. Now, just vis-a-vis Antarctica, let me just point out to those listening that Brad Olson will be on the YouTube channel and on my podcast in a couple of weeks. And he addresses a lot of these Antarctic anomalies. He does reference the pyramid as well. Not Gordian asks, what do archaeology researchers in the U.S. officially say about Bimini in Florida? Bimini.
Where's he from? Did he say where he's from? Honestly, they always avoid it, don't they? I only heard about Bimini through Graham Hancock and his survey of the Piri-Reis map. I did find it myself. To me, it looks like a boat ramp, and it looks like one for giants. It looks like some tracks going down a hill. In fact, if you watch the Graham Hancock Netflix special, we get a 3D view of it that I had never seen before, and I grabbed it, but I don't have it ready. But it looks like it's a boat ramp going down into the water. It looks like a track. Now, as far as what the U.S., the official, they're never going to say anything like that. Nobody wants to make a statement like that. And I know when I make statements right now, it sounds like I'm saying them as their fact. But no, I'm not 100% sure of any of this. What was the other place? There was Bimini, and where else?
Oh, he said Bimini in Florida, but Bimini is closer to Bermuda, right?
I can pull it up. It's very close to Florida.
Oh, it is close to Florida. My apologies. Okay.
You want me to pull it up real quick? It's not hard to find.
If you've got it there handy.
Well, it's right here. Bimini is right there, and the you can see it. You can see it. Let's find it.
Are you looking on Google
Somewhere.
Earth? Okay.
Yeah, that's Bimini. Let me just double check and make sure I'm not wrong, because I usually turn off the labels. But this is Bimini right here, right? Bimini Road, it says right there.
I'm not.
And you can see
Are you
it right
sharing
there.
it? I'm not.
That's
I'm
it.
not seeing it. Are you sharing it on your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't share. Here it comes. Let me. I'm right there, so let me share it. And that's Bimini right there. let me back out. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So you've got Florida right there, but I
Right.
don't know where the Bermudas are. Oh, the Bahamas are right there.
Bahamas, right.
So it's kind of right in between. But let me go back in now, and you can see pretty much I lost it. There it is right there.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll put it in the center. And so, like I said, it's if you look at the special that Graham Hancock did, this is a little bit higher. It looks like this is the highest point, and it's going down and then wrapping around and going down. It looks like two tracks to me. His graphic really shows that, but it looks like two tracks. And let's measure that to see how wide that is. Because if it indeed is a track, it's 100 feet wide, 94. I could probably zoom it in and get a more, whoops, let me be careful. I can get a more honest answer. So 75 feet wide. What kind of a vehicle is 75 feet wide? And I don't know if that's a track, but if it was anything, about the same, 83 feet over there.
All right.
Honestly, I'm not a big, was it Atlantis? As I mentioned earlier, Plato said that it was across from Spain. And for them to go out, maybe the Azores, like you said, maybe North America and South America, but the tribes, it sounded like Atlanteans were losers. And you mentioned that they got beat by the Proto-Greeks, but if I'm not mistaken, Plato just said that they suddenly stopped. He didn't really say the Greeks beat them.
Ah, okay.
He says they just, I'm not 100% sure of the words, but I didn't get the impression they felt beaten. But of course, I mean, if there was a war going on over by Greece, that didn't get the cataclysm as much. And there probably were more than just one events. We had what happened in Africa, the craters that I showed you in a line, just like what hit Jupiter, a string of pearls, right? And then you have what I showed you in North America, those new scans, 2023, of those divots in even New Mexico and Texas, all
the Carolina
aligned
Bays.
With
yeah,
the Carolina Bays. The survey is available, and I wish they would keep going with that. I'd like to see if those divots I found in the Grand Canyon had any relation. So for me, it's quite interesting.
All right, David, we're going to end it right there. Thanks for hanging out for the last 2 hours. We got covered a lot of ground.
Sure.
Did you want to share
a closing statement?
Yes, please do.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
Well, to just say, I didn't show you everything I had prepared, and the overburden dumping, I think, kind of goes around into Colorado, and there were actually ancient mountains built. I was going to show you something over in the Tibesti Mountains about water control, and it seems like big stuff was going on there. Who knows when? So there's a lot more stuff out there, and it's going to take years of sorting it out for me. I can't do it alone. So I do look forward to any input, your listeners, or if I could get, it's kind of like a passion. You know, I might have to get a job someday. I might have to stop doing this, but for now, I'd love to get back to the Richat Structure one more time and really do it my way. So I might be doing that this year. I might not, depending on situations, but it seems like it's going to be another trip to Africa for me. And sub my YouTube channel at Stig, and I'll take you along with me. There's a lot of video there that I didn't try to show you tonight. So it's tough for me. That channel is quite a mess. I have the trip to the Richat. I have the ancient stuff that I found. So it's like, I'm going to redo it. I'm going to reproduce it and try to read. But right now I'm only making $8 a month off of YouTube. So YouTube's not my top priority. I'd like to probably put in a book soon.
Fantastic. We look forward to that. David, thank you so much for this.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. David Stig Hansen. All right. There we go. Where are we? Just trying to get There we are. Okay. Thank you for everyone hanging out in the YouTube live chat, and hopefully we'll see you again the last Sunday of the month. But don't forget, in the meantime, you've got new episodes from my podcast being posted to the YouTube channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then Sunday, you can gather in the YouTube live chat. Although the program is not live, we kind of present a best of the old conspiracy show. And you can gather in the live chat and enjoy each other's company. But I'll see you live on the live stream the last Sunday of next month. All right. Bye-bye for now.